Okay, for what it's worth, I thought I would actually produce a response video here. Now, this is not going to become a regular thing. I did run a kind of response video sub-channel here, which I called St. Andrian in Retirement, when I basically presented myself as a retired YouTuber come consultant. But I have to say that, these kind of videos, they don't really have a very long shelf life, and I certainly do not want to become that kind of ranting YouTuber ever again. Now, speaking of ranting YouTubers, I really feel a very strong compulsion to deliver a very candid message to somebody who I think really needs to hear this message. Now, I've been a long time follower of the Unreal Man, and even by his standards, I have to say that his response video to Wings of Redemption, I have to say, is outstanding. It really, the Unreal Man, I would even call him Dr. Unreal Man, because he's like a doctor who's just very blunt and just tells you some very hard truths. He's like a psychiatrist. He's not there to be your friend. He's there to do his etiology and come up with a very no holds barred diagnosis. And the Unreal Man, I have to say, he has really excelled himself in responding to Wings of Redemption. I've never really followed Wings of Redemption, to be honest. I'm not really into video games. I have not played video games basically in 2 decades. I kind of lost interest in them back in the 2000s, back in my mid to late 20s. But I've got 3 important things to say to this guy who goes by the name Wings of Redemption. Now, I know that he's a moaner, and I know that he likes to wallow in his depression and misery, and he keeps coming up with the excuses why he can't. And as many of my own subscribers, past and present, as many of you will recall, I used to be that guy. And I see this Wings of Redemption guy. He's 39 years old. I think he's 6 years younger than me, and I'm in my mid-40s. And I think in many ways, Wings of Redemption, he is exactly where I was in my late 30s, towards the end of last decade. So I want to deliver this other kind of, not an alternative diagnosis, not just an alternative point of view, but I want to try and provide a more prescriptive response to Wings of Redemption. And really the crux of my message to him is, you can change your life. But of course, it's not going to be easy, and you're going to encounter a lot of ups and downs along the way. But the thing is, Wings of Redemption, he has hit rock bottom, and I don't think really he can get much worse than what he is right now. Now, maybe it's not entirely his fault for where he's ended up today, but the thing is, last decade, I ended up long-term unemployed. I too was gravely overweight. I too have spent my entire adult life dateless, with not very much in the bank, watching my small circle of friends diminish over the years. And I've hit rock bottom many times, especially last decade. I was just bouncing off the bottom in all these different metrics. Never been able to move into my own place, and increasingly a lot of people these days can't afford to live independently, live in their own houses or flats. But the thing is, what I want to say, there's 3 important things I would like to say to this Wings of Redemption, perhaps in addition to what the Unreal Man has said, has carefully diagnosed. Straight off the bat, and this is my own personal opinion here, the first thing I want to say to Wings of Redemption is, you're too old to be playing video games. That's just my own opinion. I know that you'll strongly, vehemently disagree with my opinion, but a lot of video games at the end of the day are aimed at teenage boys and, sort of guys in their 20s, early 20s preferably. Video games really largely are aimed at young people. And Wings of Redemption, whoever you are, you're age 39, you're about to turn 40, you're not a young person anymore. You've not been a young person for at least a decade. And I think you need to get off the games consoles, you need to get off the games whatever. Seriously, you've got to break out. This is just my own personal opinion, but I think video gaming really is for kids and young adults. I think middle-aged and older adults should be engaging in more sophisticated more traditional pursuits and entertainments. I think our tastes, I think our leisure time, as they say in America, I think it needs to be a bit more refined. And as I've grown older, I've felt my whole behaviour, my activities kind of mature over time. I mean, for example, it would not even cross my mind to sort of hit the pub and go on a pub crawl and, go clubbing, like I used to do with my friends 25 years ago. I mean, I've not been clubbing, gosh, don't know when was the last time I went clubbing, but 20 years ago, up until about 20 years ago, I used to meet up with friends every now and then, not every single weekend, but now and then, and we'd hit the town and we'd sink a few pints. The last time I went clubbing, good grief, back in my undergraduate student days, basically I've not done that since I was probably 2022, and I kind of stopped drinking by the time I reached 30. I almost never ever drink alcohol these days. I live here with my parents, there's no booze in this place, which is good, but I felt no compulsion to live that kind of lifestyle, which is a kind of Shaun of the Dead type thing. I moved on from all that 20 years ago, and around about that time, I kind of moved on from video games as well. I just lost interest, and I think, to be honest, I grew out of video games. Now, I have met some people ever since then, people who are in the 30s or even 40s who still, sort of play GTA or something, but I just think it's quite sad. I'm sorry to say that, Wings of Redemption, but I think you're living in the past. I think you're living almost like a past Cicero's life. There's a great phrase from the film Trainspotting 2, you're a tourist in your own youth. There's something in your head that's kind of trapped in your 20s, and you've got to break out. Seriously. But that's not the main thing I want to say. The main thing, and the second thing I want to say to you, Wings of Redemption, is when it comes to losing weight, when it comes to diet, when it comes to exercise, when it comes to healthy living, that's entirely on you. You can't blame anybody or anything else in the whole world for the fact that you are gravely overweight and obese. Now, I'm not telling you this because I've always been fit and healthy and of a perfect BMI, okay? Far from it. As many of my present and past subscribers will tell you, I used to be gravely overweight as well until quite recently. And there have been 2 occasions in my life when I had to go on a crash diet. The first time was back in the year 2012. Now, back then I was 31. I'd spent the previous 5-6 years just sitting at a desk, working night shifts in a security post, and then later on working as a student support worker, and I was just trapped in front of a computer all day long, day after day after day after day. And this is when I was in my late 20s, entering my early 30s, and I was just, the diet which I enjoyed back then was the same diet when I left school. I was just drinking, fizzy drinks and lattes and hot chocolates, and I was going to Greg's and buying pies and stuff like that. And the weight just ballooned until I reached 19 stone. Okay, people use kilograms and pounds, when expressing weight. Okay, so 19 stone, that is like over 120 kilograms. That's about 265 pounds. And I'll tell you, when I was 19 stone, I felt it. I was very, very unhealthy, very unfit. And in late 2011, I suffered a brief minor heart attack. My heart stopped beating for about 30 seconds. And it was when I was driving. Miraculously, I managed to pull the car off the road. And that was a huge wake-up call. I approached my manager and I said, I need to take 3 months off work for health reasons. And I got out of the house every single day. And I marched at least 5 miles if the weather was awful, at least 10 miles when the weather was good. And it took a very long time. And then, when I came back to work, I did something else. Now, I dropped about 1.5 stone during those months when I was just exercising every day, when I was signed off work for health reasons. When I came back to work, I lost another 3 stone because I did a multitude of things. I deliberately left my bank card at home. I took just enough money for the train fare, for commuting into work, and I packed myself basically a bottle of water and maybe an apple or 2 and I took no money with me for food. I went to work and I basically starved myself throughout the day. Now, it was a radical crash diet which I undertook in 2012. And I basically eliminated a whole lot of things. Anything sugary, cereals even, fizzy drinks, even teas and coffees, I just eliminated a lot. And takeaways were history. No more McDonald's, KFC, anything like that. And ever since the year 2012, I've generally stayed away from these places, and I've almost never had a takeaway since then. Now, the year 2012, I have to say, it awakened me to a lot of things about myself. I am gravely lacking in self-discipline, and to this day, I would say that my self-discipline is still found wanting, but the thing is, it's about patience more than anything else. Wings of Redemption, my message to you is you have to completely radically alter your diet, but you also need to radically alter how you go about your day-to-day business. And I think the first thing you need to do, Wings of Redemption, is seriously, you need to get rid of everything that is keeping you in the house. Almost everything. I know that you say that you're trapped. Your only income stream is sort of reviewing games and stuff online and being a YouTuber. Seriously, Wings of Redemption, you need to break out. You need to break out. And if nothing else, you need to literally get out of the house every single day. Because that's how it began for me in 2012. And 5 years ago, Wings of Redemption, when I turned 40, it was in the middle of COVID, in the middle of lockdown, and by then I was this freelancer who was going nowhere. I was just like you, Wings of Redemption. That job which I had back in 2012, I had to take redundancy from it a couple of years later, and I spent the rest of last decade just drifting, oscillating between totally unemployed and being, just scratching an income, being self-employed as a proofreader. And again, that was a very unhealthy lifestyle. Now, the thing is, Wings of Redemption, you're sort of sitting there in front of the screen all day, trying to make a little bit of money, reviewing games and stuff. I was spending much of last decade, especially towards the end, trying to make a living, editing documents on behalf of clients, and I was perched in front of a computer all day. And it's very, very unhealthy. 5 years ago, Wings of Redemption, my weight was even worse. In the middle of the COVID lockdown, when I was trapped in the house indefinitely, like we all were, my weight actually reached 20 stone 5 years ago, almost to this day. That's 127 kilograms, that's 280 pounds. That is the heaviest that I've ever been, and I'll tell you what I did. I took on a weekend cleaning job. Now, by then, I was signing on at the job centre again, and they basically referred me for this COVID touchpoint cleaning job, and it was just one solitary shift, a Saturday shift, and that's where it all began. And I remember when I started that job, I remember day one turning up at that place and just thinking, I don't know what on earth am I doing? I really don't want to do this. And on my first shift, I had to stand in the corner of an office with all my cloths and my sprays, and I had to stand there for 8 hours. Do you know that I couldn't stand for more than half an hour without having to grab a seat and just sit down for a couple of minutes? That's how seriously overweight and unfit I was. I was in a really dreadful place, just like yourself, Wings of Redemption. And I was clinging on to a way of life that just wasn't working. My freelance business was going absolutely nowhere. The income was just steadily dwindling. It was just dribs and drabs, becoming increasingly intermittent and infrequent. And I had to do something. I had to do something radical, Wings of Redemption. Now, even in the middle of COVID, I still managed to get out of the house every day and take a walk. And of course, by then, I'd long since renounced alcohol and takeaways and stuff like that. But the thing was, I was still living a very unhealthy lifestyle, and it was making me miserable. Now, the thing is, there are things over which we have very little control. Now, when I was here on YouTube moaning about my life, just like yourself, I used to moan about the economy, I used to moan about being unemployed, I used to moan about being dateless, I used to moan about the cost of housing. Now, at the end of the day, Wings of Redemption, you know this yourself, ultimately, these things are not entirely in our hands. I mean, when it comes to making decisions, I mean, the decision isn't entirely ours to make. When it comes to dating, it's the men who do the wooing and it's the women who make the decision. When it comes to housing, well, certainly here in Britain, housing is just unaffordable. Straight up, that's it. Forget it. When it comes to employment, well, you know perfectly well as I do, ultimately it's the recruiters, it's the HR managers, the interviewers who make the final decision. But when it comes to diet, when it comes to living a healthy lifestyle and taking exercise and losing weight, Wings of Redemption, and this is really important, listen carefully to this. When it comes to diet, when it comes to exercise, basically your calorific balance, the ball is entirely in your court. It's entirely in your court. And believe me, I mean, I know how hard it is to muster up that willpower, to abstain, to delay gratification and say, no, I know there's a nice treat, there's a nice cookie sitting over there, I'm not going to eat it. I don't really want to get up at like 5 in the morning and have to sign in at work at 6:30 and, work a long shift doing cleaning. Well, what else is there? What else are you going to do with the day? What are you going to do with your life? What's the alternative? You know what the alternative is, Wings of Redemption. You're trapped in it. I was trapped in it. And do you know what motivated me to walk through the door and start that weekend cleaning job 5 years ago? Do you know what finally motivated me? What pushed me over the threshold through that front door? Was I knew what the alternative was, because I'd been living it for years. I knew that I had nothing to lose, well, except for my weight. I knew that otherwise, employment-wise, income-wise, just in terms of life satisfaction, life goals, I had nothing to lose. There was almost nothing that I was leaving behind. And it started as a trickle. And, it's the same with just generally exercising and losing weight. Losing weight takes a very long time. And once you actually lose weight, that's only half the battle. Then you've got to keep the weight down. As you grow older, you've got to make a greater and greater effort to keep the weight down. As you grow older, the body's metabolism naturally just begins to diminish. And you have to alter your diet anyway. I mean, I'm on a gluten-free, lactose-free diet, and I've managed to lose some more weight in recent times. I'm now down to 15 stone. Now, in 2012, I basically lost 4 stone, and in early 2013, I got down to just under 15 stone. 15 stone, that's about 87 kilograms, 210 pounds. And then I just kind of lost the bottle. I just, began to kind of treat myself and, to use the metaphor, I took my foot off the pedal. And just, at first, just slowly, but then more quickly over time, my weight began to increase. And by the time I took redundancy from that job in 2014, I was back up to 17 stone, and within a year, I was 18 stone. Some of my long-time subscribers here on YouTube will remember that in 2015, I made a video in which I basically wailed that I was this 3 times graduated loser living with his parents and all that. I was 18 stone at that time. And pretty much towards the end of last decade, my weight just kind of hovered around that point. And it's not healthy. Someone my height, I'm exactly 6 foot tall. I ideally should be probably no more than 14 stone. Right now I'm 15 stone and I need to burn another stone, and it's going to take time. And it demands patience and it demands determination and discipline. I think the best place to start, because there's no way that you can transform yourself overnight, Wings of Redemption. Rome wasn't built in a day. You are severely overweight, just like I was. And it's going to take you probably a whole year. If you start dieting, really pursuing a rigorous diet and exercise regime now, you'll still have to be undergoing it probably this time next year. Between now and Christmas, if you lose 4 stone, you're doing well. I'm just breaking that to you. I know that you'll find that very discouraging, but seriously. Another thing though is that the heavier your weight, the quicker that you can actually lose weight. As you go down, you're losing weight at a slower and slower rate. So if you're, I don't know, what was it, £300 or something? If you eliminate all sugary foods, all sweets, all confectionery, completely cut out alcohol, takeaways, if you pursue a high fibre, low fat diet starting tomorrow, and you purposefully get out of the house, and if you walk 5 miles every single day between now and whenever, it'll take you you'll probably lose maybe 4 stone between now and Christmas. But can you do that, Wings of Redemption? I think you can. Not least because I did that. I've done that twice. I'm 3 years into my current cleaning job right now. I mean, I've been working lots and lots of extra hours, doing so much overtime these past few months alone, and I'll tell you, it has done me the world of good. And maybe, Wings of Redemption, you need to completely break out the way that I did career-wise. 5 years ago, I sidestepped from what was basically a kind of academic role. You know, I mean, I spent too many years in university, and then I just kind of hung around universities as a student support worker, and then later on as this freelance proofreader, and it was a way of life that just wasn't working. And so 5 years ago, I made a radical change. But it began small. It began with just one weekend shift. One weekend shift. And for the first few months, I just thought, well, this is just a stopgap job. This is just, basically, it enabled me to earn just enough income to surpass what was the universal credit, basically unemployment benefit. I was registered for universal credit, and my coaches made me take on that job, basically to try and push me off the radar. But at the time, it was like a stopgap job. The hours were very few. But over time, I contacted my manager and I said, look, come on, I mean, I must be able to work more hours. There must be other sites to which you can send me. And they sent me to many, many sites around the west of Scotland. And then, in early 2022, I landed a full-time position in Greenock. And I worked there for the next year and a quarter. And then, after that, I managed to secure my current cleaning job, which I've held now for almost exactly 3 years. And this cleaning job, I have to say, I'm on my feet all day long. And I think that's what you need, Wings of Redemption. You need to get out, you need to take on, I would say, start part-time. Start working part-time in a manual job which forces you out of the house every day and makes you work, makes you move your limbs as you're working. Because I'll tell you, my cleaning career has done me the world of good. It has got me out of the house. It's basically helped me lose 5 stone. I feel much better. I've broken away from the internet and from computers. I mean, I still occasionally check my email. I occasionally go on the internet. But you know, my computer usage is only a fraction of what it was 5 years ago. I have altered my life, my whole lifestyle. But yes, it's easier said than done. But most importantly, Wings of Redemption, it takes a long time. You'll not be able to go from 0 to 100 in a day. If you tell yourself, tomorrow I'm going to do this, you're going to fail. Start small. Start with 2 or 3 very simple targets. I would say that, I mean, I made a video about this, by the way, Wings of Redemption, and I've still actually got it. I might even publish it. Step 1, make the bed. Step 2, get out of the house. I think these are the first 2 steps to turning your life around. Number 1, as, what was his name, that former Navy SEAL delivering that speech at the University of Texas, as he said, that whole path to transforming your life through self-discipline, it starts with making the bed. Start every day of your life making the bed properly. Why? Because it kind of sets everything in motion. It puts you into the right mindset. When you get up in the morning and you make the bed properly and you get yourself washed and dressed properly, you know, clean clothes and everything, it puts you in the right frame of mind. And then step 2, this is my one, which I developed last decade, is get out of the house. Take a good walk. I mean, if you don't know what you're going to do today, seriously, go for a 10-mile hike. That's what I had to do many, many times, even last decade when I was gravely overweight, when I was totally unemployed. The number of times I just said, right, I'm just going to walk all day. I'm going to walk 10 miles. It takes a good few hours, it's good exercise, and it clears your head. I mean, I cannot recommend it enough. I think these are the first two things you need to do, Wings of Redemption, is tomorrow morning, make the bed, get washed and dressed properly, and go for a long walk. And I know you're saying, oh, but I've got bills and I'm trapped in this blah, blah, blah. Look, right. You're on the verge of death. You're at death's door. And your lifestyle and what you're doing, you've said it yourself. It's killing you. It's slowly, steadily killing you. And yes, I know what it's like to be broke. I know what it's like to be scraping the pennies. I know what it's like to be, constantly just worrying and tossing and turning at night, thinking, will I ever get a job ever again? How am I going to pay next month's rent? I mean, yes, I know that you've got to make these tough choices, but the thing is, these tough choices are coming for you anyway. Why don't you take a good long walk tomorrow morning and think about it? Just clear your head, because I'll tell you another thing about taking a good long walk is it begins to kind of wake up the brain. The brain really does begin to process things a bit more rationally as you're taking all that exercise and you're just walking all these miles. Try it, Wings of Redemption, and tell me what it was like. Anyway, so I've rambled on way too long about that. And the third and last thing that I want to say to Wings of Redemption is, yes, you're a Lolcow. Just like I was a Lolcow last decade here on YouTube, especially a decade ago, exactly 10 years ago. Well, I'm sorry, Wings of Redemption, but it only ends in tears. It just ends in more and more pain. I mean, it doesn't help you, and it doesn't really help anybody else. The number of times I've just deleted all my videos, deleted past channels. Why? Because it wasn't just because they were bringing me down. It wasn't just because they were making matters worse. It wasn't just because they were attracting all the trolls and mockers, just like midges and flies and moths. It wasn't actually helping anybody else. You've got to do more than just, switch on the camera and just moan about your life. Try and say something constructive. Try and come up with some solutions. Do something else. I mean, if you really enjoy reviewing video games, okay, but seriously, you got to do something else. I didn't just moan about my life on YouTube. I mean, I reviewed books. I produced video series. I delivered commentaries. And now I record and upload very old-fashioned records, shellacs. I've got hobbies, I've got other interests. But I'll tell you, I mean, there's no hope for anyone who just spends their life being a Lolcow. There's no hope for anyone who goes there, ultimately. It's a trajectory which only leads you deeper and deeper and deeper into the darkness. And you might think that, just venting and just getting it off your chest is some kind of cathartic pain relief. It's not. It's not. It really isn't. It doesn't help you and it doesn't help anybody else. I purged nearly all my past YouTube videos. I just decided enough's enough. Enough's enough. Got to move on. Anyway, so that's just my 2 or 3 cents, Wings of Redemption. I don't expect you to watch this or respond to this, but I'll tell you Wings of Redemption, and I'll just close my video here on this note. If I can reduce my weight, if I can go from 20 stone down to 15 stone, if I can break out from some dead-end career path into cleaning and completely change my life in the process, seriously, so can you, Wings of Redemption. But believe me, Rome wasn't built in a day, and you'll not transform yourself overnight. You have to be patient and you have to be determined and disciplined. And you've got to be ruthless. There are certain things, for example, which I will not have in my life. I don't drink booze. I don't like smartphones. That's just my own personal thing, okay? I'm not judging anybody around me who has a smartphone, but I will not have a smartphone because I just felt like it was controlling me. I wasn't in control of it, if you know what I mean. But that's just my own view, okay? But that's my life decision. I mean, there are certain things that I will not have in my life. There are many things to which I have said farewell, adieu. There's time. There comes a point when you've got to let go. You've got to take a good look at your life and think, you know what, this whole lifestyle just ain't working. I've got to change. And I think since you're approaching 40, Wings of Redemption, and you're entering middle age, I think this is the time for you to make a big, huge change. You need to. Because I get a feeling that you've probably been pretty much living the same way for the last 10 plus years. And that's not good.